Well, after our first episode with LSU quarterbacks coach Joe Sloan, apparently we haven't got any negative comments. LSU hasn't sent us a cease and desist. So myself and Are You Serious Sports Blake Ruffino, I guess that means we can do another episode of whatever this is and whatever it's going to be.
I'm just glad I didn't get fined. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Right.
Like
okay.
My name's Marshawn Lynch.
Right, yeah. So apparently we're going to keep doing this, and we're just going to kind of give you a wrap-up of the week that was. And Blake, it's been a really roller coaster of emotions for me, especially because as a guy that covers LSU, specifically football this past week, I was under the impression that LSU was behind in football recruiting. Brian Kelly had lost it. He doesn't know how to recruit. He doesn't know how to get blue-chip players here to Baton Rouge, and I was just very upset. What kind of LSU team am I going to cover going forward? And is it going to be just a bunch of portal guys? Is it going to be a bunch of 2- and 1-star players? Because apparently getting the State of the Union on Twitter from LSU fans, that's what we were headed towards.
You know, man, it's funny for me because, recruiting in today's age is so different. NIL, portal. We got to, and even now, Matt, you don't have a scholarship limit, at least intake limit, right? Like you could take in 35 dudes. So I think that we got to relax. Now, look, Derek Williams, a really talented safety from Westgate, committed to Texas this week. I'm hearing from some coaches, high school coaches, that maybe his family didn't know that he was committed to Texas. So, look, it's June. People, we focus so much on the player you didn't get, but then we forget that when Brian Kelly came in here for 2 weeks, he flipped Harold Perkins from Texas A&M. The last thing that I remember, Jimbo said, "We don't pay players." And then all of a sudden, it's funny because in the week that was here, Jimbo's coach is like, "Hey, you see those guys in the suites? They pay your bills." As the great Aaron Rodgers said before the mullet, RELAX. One last thing, though. It's funny. We've had 5 things with Brian Kelly that's been overblown. Him hitting the gritty, that's 1. The dancing with Danny Lewis, it's 2. Matt, him not doing a press conference, that's 3. And now we have him behind in recruiting, and now is he innovative enough to help the offense? So with all those 5 things, and all of a sudden the narrative completely starts to change. Matt, the game of football is one up front. And yesterday they got a commitment from Jackson Howard out of Minnesota, a legacy kid. Dad played in the NFL. They're going to clean up on both lines of scrimmage. The question is for Brian Kelly, if he can recruit on both lines of scrimmage like he did at Notre Dame, Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin, etc., but he goes right here 5 miles away from where we're at right now and gets Sheldon Sampson, then what? Then what? So when he's getting beat in the playoffs 31-17, how quickly does that change? So I think his philosophy of recruiting is fine. I just think we need a RELAX.
I would go as far to say number 4 on your list of Brian Kelly gaffes would be the family.
Oh, right.
That would be number 4. But, all that stuff was overblown. And I think interesting you're talking about, look, this whole deal started with Arch Manning going to Texas, right?
No doubt.
Everybody got their panties in a wad because Arch Manning chose to go play in Austin on the 40 acres for Steve Sarkisian, who's one of the best quarterback developers in the game at the moment. Can't fault him for that. If you thought Arch Manning had a sliver of chance to come here to Baton Rouge, you're delusional.
Right.
And I think that that's like the only way we could put it, because since Jump Street, we had even heard stories of Arch coming to LSU camp as like an 8th grader and offering him, and the Manning family was like, he's not going to take that offer just yet. Because they really wanted his recruitment to be as traditional and low-key as possible. And I'll be honest, talking to people around the state that know the ins and outs of recruiting, I really think that Arch Manning had in his mind for months that he was going to go to Texas.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but we've seen this with the Mannings. We've seen Peyton go to Tennessee. Well, why do you go to Tennessee? Well, you got Cutcliffe, and you can develop me to the league. Okay, then Cutcliffe goes to Ole Miss. Funny. Okay, then all of a sudden, here comes Eli going to Ole Miss. Steve Sarkisian hires Cutcliffe before Greg Sankey says, no, you're coming to work for the SEC, and then Arch is going to Texas. Look, I don't, he's not an average kid. He's not an average recruit.
And it's not an average situation either.
No, it's not an average situation. I don't really care I don't care what a kid does in recruiting, really. I don't, does it bother me sometimes when the kid opens up his shirt and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to Clemson. And he takes his shirt off and he's going to LSU, whatever. But the bottom line is this young man had an opportunity to where he thinks Steve Sarkisian can get him to the next level. Now, people hate on Sark, and I understand it. He's got a sketchy past sometimes. But Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, and everything at USC. He made Jake Locker, a first-round pick to the Tennessee Titans. This man can develop quarterbacks. The question is can Tennessee put pieces around him? Well, look at what they did on the offensive line a season ago. Matt, they were the best offensive line in recruiting just last season in recruiting in 2022. I think, that set a precedent. But even a lot of these quarterbacks, the funny thing is Eli Holstein goes to Alabama, and then now you've got Ricky Collins that sits there. Last time I checked, before we started the podcast, was Ricky Collins going to the Elite 11 and just killing everybody.
Yeah, dominating.
And so, we got to be – and, Matt, I talked to a regional scout from 247, and he was sitting here telling me, he goes, Blake, I haven't been able to go out in 3 years, really, and watch – we get 2 games a week. 2, okay? I can't go and see if Arch Manning's 6'4". Matt, I went and watched Arch Manning, and they got his – him listed at 6'4", and I'm like, dude, you're 6'2.5" at best.
No shot,
And so I just think that we got to calm down and relax with all of this, because if we continue to overreact to recruiting, Matt, everybody, there's an assumption from LSU fans that were going 9-3 last year. Your entire defensive back room is different besides Jay Ward. Mm-hmm. So there's a plan in place. We just got to let Brian Kelly do what he's got to do.
I think it's interesting because people and sometimes us in the media don't take into account how really hard it is to make up ground when you come into a new situation with a new staff.
Right.
I think it's because we see coaches like Jay Johnson here recently, and we'll get to that in a minute, and Kim Mulkey that just put their boots down in Louisiana soil, and kids are committing left and right. That's very abnormal. Right. And Brian Kelly got kids to come to South Bend, Indiana for years.
They don't even have a Whataburger.
South Bend, Indiana. Not a great place to have a destination wedding. I'm going to tell you that right now.
No.
So, and you come to a place like Notre Dame, which is great, but it doesn't have the allure of being in a conference. It doesn't have the allure of these big-time SEC programs, and yet 4- and 5-star kids were coming there. Brian Kelly is the coach that I'm the least worried about. But also, too, we're also not talking about the kids that he's already gotten. Trey Holly, the running back from Union Parish.
Right.
I saw him 2 years ago against Madison Prep in the 3A state title game at Northwestern State. And even though they lost, that man ran like a man possessed. Okay?
Well, right, and you still got good recruits. You got Colin Jackson. You have Caleb, the kid Caleb at Liberty. I mean, you got pieces. I mean, Zalance heard it at Neville. Okay, him and Will Campbell were high school teammates. Could you imagine? First off, I'm sorry, and I apologize to every parent out there whose sons had to go up against Will Campbell and Zalance Hurd. Okay, but then you got other kids from outside the state. You have Chase Basantis from New Jersey. You have T.J. Shanahan. And then what are you going to do on both lines of scrimmage? Hey, you want to know why Saban beats everybody so bad? It's not the skill positions. It's what they do up front and dominating you. But when they get this special piece outside, you can look at, Matt, when Alabama had its dominance. Yeah, they had some key pieces offensively. They had Amari Cooper. They had Julio Jones. The one big playmaker, Jamison Williams from a season ago, they had one big playmaker on the outside. Newsflash. Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. You got a kid, again, I keep talking about Shelton Sampson like he's going out of style. But Shelton Sampson is that dude, Matt.
Yeah.
He is that dude.
Yeah.
So when you put those pieces on the outside for Brian Kelly in this offense, the sky is the limit. The one thing that I think, Matt, that completely gets overlooked, and I think that this is because whether you like LSU, love LSU, or you hate LSU, they are the number. And when it comes to football, it is Bama, it is LSU in reference to national titles. But, Matt, we went 11-12 the last 2 seasons. You've had a losing record the last 2 seasons. Kids still want to win. And we overlooked that so much. Look, LSU can still flip a Harold Perkins in recruiting. So this whole we're behind and things like that, that's not necessarily true. You were 11-12 and the wheels came off. That's not talking about, we're not talking about the Title IX things that were going on. You know, the Sharon Lewis case in the beginning of it, now that it's being dropped in court. Matt, I mean, there's so many things that were surrounding LSU. Oh, and let's not forget about the Will Wade sanctions. You got hit with penalties, and the NCAA came down on football and basketball. Well, if you're a parent and you're from really anything and you don't fully understand what's going on at LSU, man, if I told you that LSU just got popped by the NCAA, wouldn't you tell your child to take a step back? Okay, let's look what's going on. If you commit and LSU has this going on, are you okay with being there when it happens? I say that LSU, I think, is going to be completely fine in football. We'll wait and see about basketball. But that's the point. We take everything into a holistic view of what's going on with this team.
I think you said it perfectly, and I think that the main thing is that fans don't see things the way an LSU football coach would see things. They don't see things how a LSU recruit would see things because, you know, I think that for the longest time, and you can speak to this longer than I can because I'm a short timer in Louisiana, but like it was thought to be that if you're a 4- and 5-star kid in Louisiana, you should just go to LSU. But here recently we've seen that like Alabama's come in and poaching some kids. Texas has shown that they can come in and poach some kids. Brian Kelly did it, went into New Orleans and got Logan Diggs, who was, what, 3rd or 4th on the team last year in rushing as a freshman. So, like, that's not the norm anymore. But it's also not a knock on LSU. You've got Eli Holstein, who committed to A&M and then flipped to Bama. LSU was never in the picture.
Never.
They were never in the picture. And for a myriad of reasons that we would be here for another hour or so talking about, Dad played at LSU. He had lived under the purple and gold flag for so long. Maybe he wanted something different. Maybe he wanted to go somewhere and create his own legacy. Jaden Osbury at U-High is the same way. Dad's in the LSU athletic department. He has grown up hearing about his brothers at Auburn.
Right.
He's grown up, like maybe these kids don't look at LSU the way everyone else does. And to that point, you've also got, you're talking about recruits and Shelton Sampson. There are a lot of kids still available that are within a 30 to 35 mile radius of Baton Rouge.
That can play. That can seriously play.
That can play.
And look, I you know, for me, it comes to a point where I like you said, Eli Holstein wasn't coming here. Okay.
No.
And that it is what it is. But Louisiana has had, you know, I remember Ismail Sobcher from A-Meet leaving. I remember Devonta Smith leaving and winning the Heisman at Alabama. I remember Fedarian Mathis leaving. But then when LSU missed, big air quotes, they went and got Justin Jefferson. Look, my mom taught Devontae Smith. I've known the Smith family, being and living in that area, growing up in that area. The kid is a extremely great person. I would take Justin Jefferson over Devonta Smith.
Oh.
Okay, I mean, that's just, but Matt, wouldn't you? He came into the league and broke the receiving record in the NFL. Think of the receivers that we've had in the NFL, and that kid did it. Oh, he was a 2-star. No, he was a 2-star because they thought some things about him off the field. The kid's never been a problem off the field. The kids that are the problem off the field, you're not dinging.
I think the funny thing to wrap this up is the people that are now upset that LSU is missing and whiffing on kids and Brian Kelly struggling to recruit are the same people that were probably upset that LSU went out and signed 2-star Justin Jefferson, that went out and signed an undersized Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Right.
Oh, what are we going to do with that Hilary kid? We ain't going to Those are those same fans. And so, like, I will never, at a place like LSU, at a place like Alabama, I will never underestimate that coaching staff's ability to develop. Because, again, those same people are saying back in March, Jay Johnson, fire him. Get him out of here. Fire him. But now they're like, oh, Portal King, the prince of the portal.
First off, let me make this very well known. I was the one who started the Portal King via social media. I know that you have different names for Jay Johnson.
I think of all the crap that he's taken and that he has done a great job of flushing it and keeping on the straight and narrow, I think it should be Portal John. Jay Johnson.
No.
Portal John.
Portal King. Portal King. Do we have a disagreement here? Do we need to play rock, paper, scissors in the open air?
What we're not going to disagree on is Jay Johnson's ability to get high-level talent in here.
That's the truth.
Because this is another one where, look, I'm a baseball nerd. I geek out on stuff that the average fan doesn't think important. But from the moment that I spoke to Jay Johnson, I was like, there are just certain dudes that get it. You know, you talk to a Mike Bianco, you talk to a Tim Corbin, you talk to dudes like that are pillars in the game, and you can just, within 5 minutes, all right, this dude gets it. Jay Johnson gets it.
Well, and I think, Matt, too, I think that there is a buy-in from the boosters. Okay,
sure.
You don't look. Let's call it what it is. You don't get Tommy White, aka Tommy Tanks. You don't do what you're doing in the portal and in recruiting. I get some of the guys are hurt. Some of them will go to the draft. You know, but you have one scout that we know really well. Okay, from in the major leagues, told us both, give or less, this LSU baseball recruiting class, if this were football, would trump Texas A&M from a season ago.
Yeah.
Because you have the Crawford kid, Carl Crawford's son. Now, he's not coming here, but you have guys like Gavin Guidry. Matt, they're on paper, they're the number one team in the class. I mean, you can't stop. You know, Braden Jobert, there was a rumor about Braden Jobert going into the portal and going to Ole Miss. He came out and said, dude, I'm not leaving. And everybody's like, yeah, Jay Johnson's recruiting so good, Braden Jobert can't play here. And I'm like, doggy, hit almost 20 home runs. Like, you got to shut up, bro.
Right.
You know, he's not letting him leave. Matt, they're stacked. Think about this. You're an ex-college pitcher. If you saw a lineup at the end of the year, you know, last series of the year, and you're looking at their stats, and it says 120 home runs in the starting 9, and they're not done yet, then what? I mean, I'm going to tell you what I'm not doing after what we saw from Dylan Cruz. Bro, Dylan Cruz hit another ball over the scoreboard for Team USA.
With a wood bat.
And they put it on Mike Bianco, and he's giggling, and he sits there, and he's talking to Dylan Cruz. And I imagine the conversation like, hey, can you please be out of the Ole Miss series next year? You know, like, do not come to Oxford. Matt, they are going to kill the baseball next season, barring injury. But the staff got a lot better. You know, one thing that at the end of the season, I like to go and look at all the stats, everything that they did. Bro, did you know that LSU's team ERA was 35th in the country? 35th. I didn't realize how great that bullpen was a season ago. Starters, 107th. Bullpen, like 7th or 8th. Man, they got some really good pieces on this team. Barring injury, they could be really good. But it started in the portal with Jay Johnson, the buy-in from the boosters, and he's killing it.
To me, when I look at it, Tommy White coming, huge.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
And then you're going to get Dylan Cruz back. You're going to get Trey Morgan back. But to me, I look at it as like, yeah, those are a lot of good bats, but it's also a lot of good bats that you can spread out throughout this lineup.
Right.
Because if we knew anything about LSU baseball, bottom half of the lineup wasn't great.
No, it wasn't.
It just wasn't. And I think you really saw that, and it came to a head in Hattiesburg, where 1 through 5, 1 through 6, that's 90% of your offense.
Right.
That's 90% of your run production. And then it got to like 7, 8, 9, and I understand guys are out and hurt, you know, and whatever the situation may be, but that bottom half of the lineup was just abysmal. And when you can, if I'm a pitcher, and I know that if I go through 1 through 5 unscathed and I can kind of cruise 6 through 9, do you know how easy that makes my outing?
Well, and you focus through 1 through 5. Like, you know, what's crazy, and I was writing down the lineup on the show this week, And they're not done. I mean, I think Alex Milazzo is a fantastic defensive catcher. But, Matt, LSU played a kid from Air Force, and Paul Skeens, I think his first name was Paul Skeens, who on Team USA.
I was going to say, he's on Team USA, yeah.
You know, he's killing it. I mean, and he's got coaches flying in to watch him. Matt, what if there's a situation where 1 through 8, hey, Braden Joubert or Gavin Dugas is hitting 8th?
That's what I'm saying, because
Dude.
because everybody is going to key on Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Tommy White, wherever he hits.
Josh Pearson.
Josh Pearson,
Right.
and then you get to who's this Joe Bear kid hitting 7th, and then he puts one off his face in left field on the big board.
And Jack Pineda. Okay, Carter Young, I know, struggled to play for Vandy last season, but the bottom line is you got Jack Pineda. Yeah, he doesn't have the huge home run numbers, but he hit over 300. It's like adding another Jordan Thompson without the errors.
Sure.
I mean, if people, God bless Jordan Thompson, he, kind of talking around to Jay and talking around the team, he was hurt the first probably 12 to 14 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Last 11 games of the season, his knee's better, he's ready to go. Matt, 1 error in 11 games. And he saved you a lot of runs in Hattiesburg because K. Doty was fumbling, bumbling, stumbling, through just routine ground balls.
I think too it's going to be interesting. Jordan Thompson's playing 3rd in the Cape.
Yeah, and then last night I was watching, he was playing left field, and dude, Jordan Thompson's got a cannon.
Yeah, he's got a hose.
He fields the ball off the fence, and he fields it, and he doesn't take a crow hop. Jordan Thompson's just that dude. It reminds me of like a Vladimir Guerrero. He can just take one step and,
Yeah.
Dude, he threw it to home plate, and it legitimately had 1 bounce, and it's on a frozen road. So you have a situation where if Tommy White plays 3rd, Trey Morgan plays 1st, if you put Thompson out left, I mean, there's so many options. Matt, and here's the crazy thing. We're not even talking about this freshman class that's coming in.
Yeah, dude.
That was the #1 in the country and the best rated baseball recruiting class, not just of this class, but of all time. Now, some of them, again, like I said, if Gavin Guidry from Barb hits campus, dude, you're looking at Bregman 2.0, dude. When we talked to scouts and they said that they're doing everything that they can to take Gavin Guidry in the 1st round, it's because, hey, the worst thing that he does is on the mound and he throws 93.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say he's really. I think the LSU coaches are going to have a really tough decision. Do we keep him on the mound or do we put him in the the infield? Because he really, and it's just, I want to know too if anyone knows what they put in the water out there at Barb. Like where do these 1st round kids come from? Where do these high level kids come from? Because it's every year. It's every single year out there. What am I missing out there?
Per source, Zach Nunez coaches their Little League baseball team. That's what he told me. That's what he told me. I mean, what do you want me to say? Shout out to Zach Nunez. But I mean,
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say Zach Nunez has absolutely nothing to do with the Barb.
And he never told me that.
Has literally nothing. But I think too, we're also getting back to Jay Johnson. In my opinion, we're totally not even talking about as much as we should the biggest draw that he's gotten to Baton Rouge, Wes Johnson.
Dude.
Because here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing. I was on the golf course when the news broke, and someone texted me, hey, Jay Johnson got a pitching coach from Minnesota. And I go,
the Gophers?
I was getting ready to say, I was like, do the Golden Gophers have baseball? Like, I think they do. I'm not sure. He goes, no, the Twins. I went, oh, that's because there's again like a common misconception that big league coaches get paid a ton of money. And they do, comparatively. They do. But like with Wes Johnson, I'm not going to say that like a college job, no matter where you are, is better than a big league job. But Wes Johnson was in a situation where he was having to do everything. Like he was at the field 12 hours a day. And like in the big leagues, you got to 6 o'clock game, you got to be in the field at like noon. You know, if you're a coach, just doing miscellaneous managerial stuff, and if guys want to get, throwing sessions on the side or do whatever beforehand. That's a long day, especially for
162 days a year.
Yeah, and that's a long day. And I think Wes was looking for the perfect time to get back into the SEC because he's coached at Mississippi State, he's coached at Arkansas, he's had success at those places. And give credit to Jay, he knew when to pounce.
Well, and look, I understand that the base salary for Wes is around $320, so just a little bit less than his base salary with the Twins. But, Matt, if you read that contract, I'm like, wait a minute. If you do this in the SEC, if you do this, you do this, you do this, it goes up to $750,000. Dude, again, there's no way on God's green planet, I hope everybody listens to this. There is no way on God's green planet that you can say that LSU athletics is behind in spending money. Matt, Brian Kelly, and I know we're talking baseball, he's guaranteed $90 million. He's guaranteed it. And so when we sit here and we talk about, it's not like the Twins are like in the movie. I forget the movie with the Twins, the baseball movie.
Oh, Little Big League?
Little Big League.
Yeah.
It's not like Little Big League.
Yeah.
They're the first in the AL Central.
Yeah. I think that is the funniest part about it all is that, like, you're working with the best of the best in big league pitchers. You're working with dudes and you're going up against big league competition and you're leading a division and you leave. Leave for less money. Less money.
Right.
So, like, I don't know what Jay is doing. I don't know what he's promising these people, but it's working. It's working, and like, again, he is a guy that I think he's very, very smart. I think he's very smart as a human being. I think he's very smart as a coach. But I think we don't give him a whole lot of credit on how smart he really is. Because Jay's a mover and shaker behind the scenes. Like, Jay knows how to move the chess pieces around to kind of get what he wants, or at least set up to get what he wants. And look, I thought Jason Kelly did a tremendous job with this pitching staff. Again, in a short amount of time, every starter reliever that we talked to said this coaching staff has changed a lot of dudes' outlook on baseball and life. It's a professional environment, right?
No doubt.
It's not, and not to say that the previous regime with Maneri and AD didn't work, but this one is like, hey man, show up to the yard, get your stuff in, or don't. I don't really care, but you're going to do it, because if you don't, you're going to be sitting beside me watching someone else out there in your spot playing.
Well, and you know this as well as I do. Iron sharpens iron, and competition makes you better. Like I don't know about you, Matt, but for me, when there was a young buck that was getting recruited and comes in, I'm like, so he's 3 inches taller than me, he's bigger than me, but he's faster and stronger than me. So what do I have to do to make sure? Okay, well, he can't outsmart me, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but you're going to have to be in a place where mentally where I am to take it over, because you're better than me. Jay Johnson will have a roster of 35 dudes that will play in the league, Matt. Think about, like, the worst guy that you could say on this roster right now from a batting average standpoint would be Joe Bear. The funny thing about that, though, he hit 18 bombs, dude. And the thing that I want to say with this, you don't get there, and they need a lot of credit. You do not get there without the buy-in from the boosters and the new age NIL.
Well, and you have to now, right?
Right, you have to.
The funny thing about NIL is that people want to get all up in arms about it now. This stuff has been going on for decades in college athletics, but now it's just out in the open. So everybody knows the figures that are being thrown around, and now they can put a dollar value to success or losing.
Well, and it's like, I'm not going to say the athlete's name. I've said this on my show, but I'm not going to say it here. I think some of it's a little overblown. Like, I feel like when they talk about the Wild Wild West, we're in the Wild Wild West. It's like the Wyatt Earp stories back in the Wild Wild West. Wyatt Earp killed 17 men with one bullet. Like, how does that happen? Some of these kids aren't making the money that you think that they're making. But You know, you got guys like Bryce Young that's doing a podcast on Colin Cowherd's The Volume. He's not making millions of dollars like you think that he is.
It is funny because we saw Bryce Young at Manning Passing Academy, and I straight up asked him, I was like, bro, every time we hear NIL and what these kids are making, your name is at the forefront of every conversation. Bryce Young's getting $8 million from Dr. Pepper. Oh, he's getting another. You know, like seriously, like we hear that stuff. And he was like, yeah, you know, I think a lot of it's overblown. You know, I think a lot of it is guys taking advantage of situations. But, and obviously we will never know the dollar amount unless they're released. But if you look, you're doing NIL deals with Mike Jones and Chris Hilton. We've reached out to LSU and other players to do NIL deals. The rate is not that excessive.
Well, I let me say this. No, I'm just joking.
I mean, you're not doling out millions of dollars. I know.
Speak for yourself, Matthew.
I know for damn sure we're not. But, like, people have it in their mind because, oh, it's Bryce Young, quarterback at Alabama. He's a national champion.
Well, and it came from Saban. It came from Saban. Remember, he went into Texas, and he got cocky, and he said what he said about, oh, Bryce Young's making this. Well, you know what you did? You blame everything on Jimbo, but you started it.
Yeah.
So what do you think the A&M boosters heard when he said, my quarterback's making $1 million? Dude, I've never really had a whole bunch of money like these guys, but I would imagine they're sitting in a wine loft drinking their bourbon and just like, hey, Rick, did you hear what Saban just said? What a silly goose. You know, like that's what I imagine. And when you start doing that, though, Matt, you better come to the forefront. And now what's funny is Saban, we heard him call out Jimbo, Deion, Ohio State, whatever. No, what he was really doing was calling out his boosters. He was calling out his guys. Well, Nick, why are you calling them out if everything is given to Bryce Young? Chill out, bro. Chill out. Like, you started this, and now you're having to live with the repercussions.
I think it's one of those deals where it's the lawyer mentality. It's like, Jimbo's saying, well, we didn't pay for these kids. There wasn't a dollar amount assigned. It was promised, but it wasn't actually given to him.
Correct.
You know, because that whole A&M video could not be more A&M if it tried. You've got a coach that went out on multiple occasions getting upset with Nick Saban and getting butthurt because he knows what you're doing. You know what he's doing, and you told everybody. And then you got upset because your master plan of getting high-level recruits into A&M, College Station, which, again, it's like Brian Kelly getting kids to South Bend. Ain't gonna be many destination weddings in College Station as someone who's lived there for 2.5 years. Ain't gonna do it. So you're like, okay, what's going on? Well, Jimbo's a great recruiter. Maybe. But those kids aren't coming to A&M that has never been in an SEC championship game, never won an SEC championship game, never been in the playoff, don't care about a couple years ago when they finished 5th. Well, we should have been in. You weren't. And kids are flocking to College Station.
Right.
Flocking there. But yet, how? You're beating Nick Saban. I think it was 2 kids on the playground. 2 kids on the schoolyard playground doing childish things, acting like children do.
That's exactly what. But look, I got to be honest. I don't blame Jimbo.
I don't either.
No, I know you don't. I'm just saying, but like, for Saban, you know, like you're sitting there, you know, moaning and complaining. You know, you forgot to eat your oatmeal cream pies. That's what he said now, and you're getting mad. You're getting mad about what he's doing. Well, first off, Matt, and Louisiana just passed this law, and John Bel Edwards just signed it into law of the new NIL deal and the things that they did and not the ramifications, but the editing that they did for NIL in the courts and what they did in the legislature in Louisiana, and John Bell signed it into law. And all of a sudden, it's funny, you see LSU players, more NIL deals being signed. You can't go after a public records request and find out how much you're spending, and that's what people want. You know who did it first? Texas. Okay, and so now you're seeing things with LSU and recruits popping. Oh, it's because Texas, it's the same law, Matt. It's the same law. Jimbo, I don't think Jimbo's doing anything wrong. You know, we look at the video with A&M. right? The video with he's saying, "Hey, everybody in the suites that's who's paying you." Matt, it's not illegal. Now it's against NCAA rules, but your state law is going to trump what the NCAA law is or the ruling is.
Yep.
They're not doing anything wrong. However, you got to come to the table. And Matt, quite honestly, you can look at any given game, and everybody that's moaning and complaining about NIL, Matt, LSU seats 100,000 people. Do $100 a ticket on average, very low, okay, times 100,000. And that kid, the kid's getting a $12,000 a year scholarship. Dude, hush.
Yeah.
Hush. If you want to pay a kid, let it happen.
It's become, we're muddying the waters a little bit, I understand.
Right.
But the Jimbo and Nick Saban thing is fantastic.
Oh, dude.
It really is.
They're both, what's your boy from Gran Torino?
Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood. They're both Clint Eastwood and Gran Torino. Get off my lawn. Bro, Saban can file for retirement. He's got his AARP card. He, instead of athletic, I heard it was going to be depends. But regardless, okay, they are, Matt. Two coaches fight. But look, it's the parity of college football. It's where we're moving to, and it's a jockey for position. Look, Saban is on the way out, and I think that Jimbo sees like, hey, man, we got to establish a foothold, and maybe
it's an opportunity to strike.
It's an opportunity to strike.
It's an opportunity to strike.
Cobra Kai never dies.
Because too, like you said, in the SEC West, it's always been, probably always will be until otherwise stated, LSU and Alabama.
Well, and true. And here's the thing, Matt. You can look outside of basketball, but even in basketball, Matt, Arkansas got to the Elite Eight. They're spending money on sports. Are you going to tell me that the SEC West and college baseball is not the toughest division in all of college athletics?
I will. Oh, yeah, SEC West, I will go as far to say that in baseball in general, the SEC, top to bottom, is the best conference in any sport in college athletics.
And it's only getting that more competitive in football. Matt, last year LSU was one of the worst teams in the SEC West. Mm-hmm. They had 10 draft picks. Mm-hmm. And so for that reason alone, I mean, you're just, it's chaos.
I think, too, what was interesting, just to wrap this whole deal up, is we talk about LSU being behind in everything. And I don't know where this narrative comes from.
You know where the narrative's coming from.
I don't know where.
No, you know where it's coming from.
I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
But I see stuff like Kim Mulkey promoting one of her assistants to director of player personnel, but it's like director of player branding or player interacting. Pretty much an NIL overseer.
Right.
And I thought that was so good because, as you know, in the infancy stages of NIL, and we're still pretty much in there, it was really hard because we didn't know, do we go to the player first? Do we go to the school? Do we go to the business? Like, how do we bring everybody together? And essentially, LSU, every college was the back end of it. Once you got everything figured out, they would just look over it and go, okay, we sign off on this. You're good to go. Checks into the account.
Right.
And now you've got that liaison that's on staff that knows these kids and can be a better facilitator of this stuff. Because I've talked to a couple, actually a few LSU athletes. It's like, man, look, like NIL's great and it does so much for us, but it gets so annoying. Because when we're trying to like train and play games, we got people from here, and then we got to fill out paperwork, and then we got to go to compliance and get it approved, and then we got to go to this channel. It's just so many hoops you got to jump through just to get a kid a check in his hands.
Well, and I think another thing too, we do know where a lot of this is coming from, and we're not gonna get into that. Okay, we do, but my whole thing has been, is if you're going to complain about it and be worried about it, then you need to do something about it. Okay, so if you own a business, and Brian Kelly, hit my line up for saying this, but if you're going to complain about it, it's not that difficult to be in the game.
No.
It's not that difficult to be in the game at all. But you talk about Kim Mulkey. She's always thinking. It's that Tangy blood in her. It's that Tangy water. Shout out to the 985. I want to sign Kim Mulkey butterfly jacket. Okay? But, Matt, she just pulled the #1 recruit in the country. And she goes on with our buddy Mike Scarborough from TigerBait.com and Miss Williams and said, Mike asked her, was like, hey, what, were you thinking about LSU before Kim Mulkey got here? She chuckled and said, no, not at all. And, again, let's not be naive to think when you go and get elite coaches, Matt, you on campus, Jay Johnson, Kim Mulkey, Matt McMahon, Brian Kelly. I can make the argument from top to bottom. Scott Woodward has brought in, of the Big Four, the best staff in the country. Okay? And
sure
so
seems like it.
It does it not. What if Kim Mulkey gets to a Final Four in women's college basketball? Matt, we don't know what that's like. You always ask me, why don't, not relatively this, but why doesn't Louisiana like basketball? Matt, because we stunk.
Yeah.
And why was baseball so successful? Because you had Skip Bertman going out there, turning his hat backwards, yelling at the ref, and he walks like Mike Bianco, and he's hitting. That's the point. LSU fans will show up and show out a lot like what the Pelicans fans did in the playoffs this past year.
That's a good point, too. Yeah.
And they will come up and show out. NIL's here to stay, and I'm excited for it.
Look, you're talking about Michaela Williams from Parkway.
Stud.
I saw her play last year at Zachary in a playoff, like first or second round playoff game. Drew a crowd. It was packed.
Oh, I was there.
And Parkway, I think, was a 1 or 2 seed, and Zachary was like a 14 or 15. It was like
she went off, didn't she?
Well, it was funny because there were a lot of people there. There were some high school refs that I know that were off that day and came to Zachary. This is not a joke. That came to Zachary to watch her play. There were high school boys coaches that weren't playing yet in their playoffs, and they were there to watch that girl play. I even had a head coach of a very prominent basketball program in Baton Rouge watch her play. Said, I'd take her. I'd take her on my team. I'd put her on my team right now.
That when she was playing Zachary and she went the little crossover behind the back, jump back 3, make, and she's like, but it's Steph Curry when the ball was in the air and she starts jogging back, and then you look, you kind of, it's funny because I like to watch it. I like to watch the coach's reaction. You look over and you got like LSU's coaching staff going like, oh my God, we got to get her to sign, bro.
It's just she got a rebound. Slowly took it up the court, got to like half court, and just attacked straight to the rim. Got right to the lane, went Euro step, and I'm seeing her, and she was kind of away from the basket. She was away from the basket, not enough to do a Euro step and glide in for an easy layup. She was a good 14 feet away. She went Euro step, stopped, and did one leg floater and nailed it. And I looked at like some of the high school coaches that were there, and they were just sitting there, and they just went, damn.
She's the best recruit that LSU's had since Simone.
I've heard that too, and have never seen Simone play in person, but obviously knew the legend of her covering, sports from afar. LSU basketball is going to be fun to cover. The verdict's still out about Matt McMahon. We don't really know about what he's going to do recruiting. He's another one that has just done a fantastic job of hitting the portal well. But Kim Mulkey. I want Kim Mulkey personalized Columbia PFG fishing shirts.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap. you gonna get off them fishing shirts.
Because I think that's so cool. Like, you see all these coaches, everybody dresses differently and stuff, but everybody kind of looks. You'll have like a pullover on or something. Kim shows up in sweatpants and a PFG fishing shirt and is like, You're going to play for me. You're the #1 recruit. You're going to play for me. You're going to play for people. Like, who is this?
Matt, one day, I'm going to get you to put some respect on the 985. You are really fortunate that I didn't come up here in a PFG fishing shirt.
I don't have any problems with the Columbia PFG fishing shirt. As I've told you, I just think that it's the Louisiana Man starter kit.
Well, it is, and I mean, it is.
The Louisiana Man starter kit is a trucker hat, a PFG LSU fishing shirt, jeans or shorts. If it's shorts, you definitely have flip-flops on or Crocs. And if it's jeans,
I'm not Miles Brennan.
you have boots on. You even said on our first interview, first time you came here, you're like, what do I wear? And I said, well, look presentable. You don't have to wear like anything crazy. And I said, please don't wear the Louisiana Man starter kit. And he was like, oh, what is that? And I listed exactly what I just told you. He said, well, I'm upset about that. And I said, why are you upset? Is it like it offends you? He was like, well, no, because I wear that. And I said, Blake, walk outside right now of your house and walk around your neighborhood 50 yards, and I guarantee you'll find someone wearing just that. And 2-3 minutes later, he said, hey, I walked outside and I did see someone with that on, and that person was me. I'm just saying, it's not a knock. It's just like, it is what it is. You want to be comfortable. It's hot as all get out in South Louisiana, but I'm just saying, mix it up a little bit.
The underboob sweats, and you got to get the circulation through the netting.
Okay, sure.
You don't know what underboob sweats
but
like.
I will say, here's the one credit to that I will give that I've noticed in South Louisiana. You go anywhere else and people wear that, they don't fish.
Oh no.
They wear PFG shirts and they can't.
Well, I know. It's like you said something to me last week, and I'm like, bro, and I'm like showing you these pictures. I mean, dude, we fish, or we used to fish a lot, but before small children and.
Yeah. I will give it, like Louisiana, you see a dude with a Columbia PFG shirt, that dude's in the water.
Well,
that dude is
I'll tell you what, I would
water.
love to fish. I would rather be out in the heat right now and sweating profusely than watch another episode of Cocomelon.
Hey, man, we all have our crosses we have to bear, But I guarantee you, if you or I went fishing,
Cocomelon,
we would not have more big catches than Brian Kelly's going to, Jay Johnson already has, and Kim Mulkey already has.
Put some respect on Kelly's name.
Well, we appreciate this latest installment of, we're still workshopping a name, aren't we? We got to get a name.
Portal John.
No, I'm talking about for this.
Oh. Portal King. Oh, wait. No.
We'll get something. Our next time you and I get together, we're going to have some special guests. Don't want to give it away, but we are going to have some special guests.
I think they got like 77 interceptions between the both of them.
Yeah, so that's going to be good.
Maybe not 77.
We're gonna also all this will be on our WBRZ YouTube page. Blake
subscribe.
Click and smash that subscribe button, whatever the kids say.
Let me take this here. Everybody, do us a favor by hitting like and share. Share to some Facebook groups. Share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're listening to us on the audio podcast platform, hit that rate, review, and subscribe. When you do that 500 times, you get a grade at it.
All right. We'll see you next time.